Story 1. For 38 years, we have asked each other every day what we want for dinner. Story 2. Marriage is hard in ways people rarely mention. It requires balancing individual growth, invisible labor, emotional baggage, and maintaining intimacy while navigating everyday life. Story 3. We all grow. Growing together rather than apart requires cooperation and allowing each person to flourish. Story 4. If you are married to someone who is reasonably compatible and not abusive, marriage is not difficult. I am not saying it is non-stop rainbows and kittens. When it is not wonderful, it is usually just disappointingly less fantastic than you hoped, rather than actually harming you. Compare this with singlehood as objectively as possible. Suppose your spouse is not cruel or pathological and makes a good faith effort to do their share of the household chores, but every chore is done slightly differently from how you would do it, so things are a bit sloppy or imperfect. Not terrible, just mildly irritating. Your half of the chores in a two-person household is far less work than doing all the chores alone. Keeping that in mind makes the mild irritation a reasonable price to pay for almost having your household workload. The same reasoning applies to other vague dissatisfactions with a reasonably decent spouse. When you are frustrated but your partner is not a terrible person, they are probably not making your life worse. They are just not making it as much better as you had hoped. They are still making your life better overall. If you stay committed to a marriage with a basically decent spouse, it is likely they will continue to improve your life. Occasionally, there will be times that feel truly wonderful. The most difficult part of being married is keeping perspective on how good marriage is, even when it is not great. Sometimes it is great, sometimes it is fantastic, and sometimes it is simply good. It is important to appreciate even the merely good moments. Story 5. The never-ending negotiations. Love remains, but compromise becomes a daily chore. Story 6. Butt-related care is not sexual. It means helping a partner with perianal conditions. My husband had to wipe my butt when I was in the hospital and could no longer reach it. I examined a boil he developed and applied medication. We have both helped each other with suppositories. Story 7. Work on your own issues, such as trauma, unhelpful learned behaviors and coping mechanisms, defensiveness, and learning to be vulnerable, in order to grow and become a better partner. Both partners need to do this. Story 8. To accept their flaws and coexist with healthy arguments. Story 9. Understand people completely, why they behave as they do in certain situations. If their behavior comes from upbringing, try to help them heal their wounds and prevent further harm caused by continuing learned patterns. For example, if someone was raised with the belief that you should never show your feelings when sad, reassure them it is okay to express emotion and not be stoic when hurt. Do not scream, but also do not bury your feelings. There is a healthy middle ground. Story 10. I do not know how to explain it, but I cannot hear my wife and have to say, "What?" several times. Story 11. External family members can be difficult. I've seen this in a number of ways, but what gets me most is their pointless judgment. On my mother's side, my aunts and cousins seem to pick one partner to hate. They've done this to my father and to a couple of cousins. They badmouth him at every opportunity and feel free to insert themselves into the relationship. They act as if they are heroes saving them from a bad person, without considering that they are making a loving relationship harder. Story 12. Just the little annoyances you put up with because you love them, but that never go away. Not the they never replace the toilet roll problem, because you can talk about that and fix it, but the tiny things they do that irritate you for no good reason. I cannot stand the way my husband says the word absolutely. I do not know why, but it makes my eye twitch. He says it a lot, and of course I will never mention it because he is not doing anything wrong, but I have listened to him say that word for over a decade and, if we are lucky, for many decades more. It will never stop making my eye twitch. Story 13. When I'm out having fun, I miss him and wish he were there. Things are still enjoyable, and sometimes I need a few days alone to feel independent. When I'm happy and in love, I cannot operate entirely on my own. My mind thinks, oh my gosh, my husband would love this. Story 14. Sometimes you just want to eat a meal without considering your partner. Story 15. I want to make a big purchase with my own money, but I have to run it by my spouse first. Story 16. One topic people rarely talk about has nothing to do with your partner or marriage itself, but is still a common struggle. Feeling you must appear as a model of relationship health and perfection or face public judgment and ridicule if anything is wrong. At the first sign of unhappiness you may hear, "Just leave him." If you have problems, human moments, or rough patches, expect judgment and condescension from smug singles and from couples who act superior. They are often equally flawed but refuse to admit it because they are playing the same game. Story 17. The pervasive loneliness and isolation that marriage can create, especially when married to the wrong person. The knowledge that, no matter what, one day it will come to an end. Story 18. Some of the contempt and resentment in this thread is not so thinly veiled. Laughing out loud. Story 19. After watching my dad, I learned to continue loving and respecting my wife if she gains weight, and to avoid complaining about her to our children. Story 20. Taking care of each other when one is sick and carrying the load of all the chores when that happens is a lot harder with kids. Story 21. Getting used to sleeping on the wrong side of the bed every year or so. Story 22. Each relationship is unique. It depends on the two people involved. Some relationships are healthy. Others are parasitic, abusive, or violent. People should be told more often that their relationship may not work out. Learning to compromise for the good of a marriage and finding a partner willing to do the same with major issues aligned is key. Story 23. My dad once said that sometimes love just isn't enough. Time is both a blessing and a curse. It reveals whether you are with the right person and shows when you are with someone you should not spend another minute with. It also reveals much about yourself. Maybe you are the toxic one in the relationship. All you can do is wait and see. Story 24. There is always someone else to consider in every choice you make. Spontaneity slowly disappears because you must inform or ask permission to do anything outside your usual routine. Story 25. The feeling of letting the other person down when you do something fun without them, especially if they are not doing anything or are feeling down, is common. Sometimes plans cannot be changed. You have plans and they do not, or they just had a bad day and you cannot be there for them when they get home. It is important to have lives outside the relationship. If the positions were reversed, I would want her to go and have fun without worrying about me. Even so, it is hard not to feel like you are letting them down and that you should not be having fun if they are sad. It is irrational, and you know your partner would not want you to feel this way, but it is difficult to avoid. I remind myself that I will be a bigger help if I am a source of happiness, and that canceling my plans will probably make her feel worse. It is okay to enjoy myself as long as, when I return, I use that energy to try to cheer her up. I would never want her to be out and feel bad because of me. Her enjoying herself can be more beneficial than being with me sometimes, and this goes both ways. It is hard to separate your feelings from theirs, but doing so is sometimes important. Story 26. There are many difficult moments, but if you are committed and mentally and physically healthy, the difficulties you face can lead to something better in the end. You grow as a person and become more mature, allowing you to find greater satisfaction in life. Story 27. For me, it is hard when my partner has a problem I cannot fix. Watching him be stressed, frustrated, or scared hurts. I comfort him, and I believe I make a difference. Still, I would rather be able to make it all go away for him. Story 28. There are gross parts of taking care of each other when it comes to medical issues. Someone mentioned having to help wipe their partner's buttocks when the partner could not reach themselves. But we mask this by saying we love and care for the person, that we want to make them feel good, and that we expect the same in return. Humanity can be beautiful, but it can also be gross. Story 29. If there is a bad smell, like when you drive past a garbage plant, and you are blamed for farting. Story 30. As a woman married to a man, I become highly defensive about domestic labor distribution and can be hypervigilant about whether it is fair. It took training to reach a more balanced arrangement, which I find exhausting. Story 31. There will be days you just don't like your spouse, and that is okay. I love him dearly, but one more gulp of air and I will feed him to the pigs. After 25 years together, he always wants sex. I am convinced it is all he thinks about. The number of times he grabs my butt, touches my breast, or tries to put his hands down my pants is out of control. The second we are alone, he brings up sex. He does not think about anything else. I am over it. Story 32. No matter how big your house is, it feels like a shoebox when you are arguing. Story 33. I have been married for 35 amazing years to someone who creates beauty, life, and love wherever she goes. Her family, however, is no picnic. So conservative they would make Attila the Hun look like Timothy Leary. Her parents are total control freaks. Their favorite conversation topics are everybody else is stupid except us, and how other people waste their money on stupid things. For example, my wife and I take one big vacation a year. We make good money, so we treat ourselves. This past year, it was 2 weeks in Croatia, one of those weeks cruising the islands on a chartered sailboat. The year before that, it was 2 weeks in Alaska. Normal people ask, what did you enjoy most about it? My in-laws' only question is, how much did that cost? When my brother and his wife adopted a baby from Ethiopia, the only question was, how much did that cost? It is exhausting. Another example, they are Midwestern Catholics. They are at church whenever the doors are open. I am a liberal Episcopalian. When my wife unilaterally decided to baptize our firstborn into the Episcopal Church, the entire family lost its collective mind. They came close to boycotting the service. Don't get me wrong. In many ways, they are salt of the earth people who would give the shirts off their backs. But my value system is almost the opposite in many ways, so I have next to nothing in common with them. My wife and I like to get out and do things. They rarely leave the house except to go to church. When we go there for the holidays for 4 days, I stare into the distance and read a book. I try to make polite conversation, but we're on completely different wavelengths. I'll say this. My family is way more fun. We are like something out of a Tennessee Williams play. My mother and sister can get a snootful and say catty things. They simply cannot help it. As a result, we take my sister in very small doses, mainly Thanksgiving or Christmas, never both in the same year. My wife and I have an ongoing debate about whose family is more difficult to take. This year, hers is in the lead slightly. So know this, when you marry the person, you marry the family with all its pros and cons. You must be emotionally prepared and mature enough to accept who that family is and understand that you are now part of that family too. At the same time, be understanding of your own family's quirks and the struggles your spouse may face when fitting in. Be prepared to develop strategies to manage and keep your sanity intact. Story 34. Staying patient, handling money, and working through bad moods without taking it personally. Story 35. Not difficult. If you want a buddy for life, just say, "Hi baby, good morning. Do you want poached eggs or cereal?" This is quickly followed by 2 doodles licking my face and the cat purring from under my bed. Story 36. Having only one working bathroom can be difficult. If you eat at the same time and do nearly everything together, your bowel movements are likely to align. When one person is stuck on the toilet and the other needs to go, it is never fun. Story 37. Maintaining your own space and identity is important. Love and time tend to make 2 people closer, but people are also individuals, and it is difficult to reclaim individuality without creating insecurity. Story 38. Listening to the same dumb joke repeatedly and somehow not losing your mind because you still find the person telling it cute, even though the joke wore thin years ago. Story 39. Compromising on things such as which country to visit, house decor, food, which movie or series to watch, alone time, and sometimes sex. Story 40. My husband never flushes the toilet, let alone closes the lid. Story 41. Not actually liking the person you married. Not me, admittedly. I am astounded by how many of my friends and peers have parents who are married but, according to them, actively dislike their spouse. It is as if they are waiting for the other to die so they can have the whole juve. Maybe they once loved the person but no longer like them. I can imagine many reasons they remain married. But it still sounds sad. Story 42. There are so many things to agree upon: vacations, furniture, homes, paint colors, where to send the children to school, child rearing, pets, sex, and household budgets. It is remarkable how many couples successfully navigate all these discussions. Story 43. Some issues were not discussed or could not be addressed early in our relationship. I met my wife when we were both 17. We married when we were 26 and 27, and we are now 39 and 40. We agreed early that we did not want children, but her sister had two after we were married. My wife wants each child to visit for a week every year, and I do not want to spend 2 weeks a year acting as a temporary caregiver. Story 44. In sickness and in health, your spouse expects you to work hard and support them. It is not always a super sexy honeymoon. Story 45. I married my best friend and love him. However, when he chews with his mouth open and his jaw pops, I have homicidal thoughts. Story 46. When the day-to-day tasks and responsibilities pull you out of the honeymoon phase and you cannot find a way back. Story 47. Getting the other person to agree that you are married. Who the fuck is claiming they are married to me while forcing me to live homeless? I oppose this and demand a divorce. God damn it. Story 48. A nagging, disgruntled wife who gaslights in front of friends and family, but destroys peace of mind at home. Story 49. If you are a perfect match and your spouse is your best friend, life is heavenly when things are good. When things go wrong, however, it is awful. Have a disagreement or fight. You cannot talk to your best friend about it. When my spouse became sick, a neighbor asked how I was doing. I said the love of my life was in the hospital and I could not talk to my best friend about it. If or when the unthinkable happens, you not only lose a spouse but also your closest companion. Do not get me wrong. It was bliss while we were together, but I feel the loss all the more for it. Story 50. It is a lifetime of effort to keep your ego in check, maintain your side of the fence, and make sure you do right by your partner. Story 51. What do you want for tea? Laughing out loud. Dinner if you are not Northern English. Story 52. She is always there. You think you can sit in a room or work on a project, and then she suddenly appears. Story 53. For me, the big one, and maybe for other couples, is that the things you admired in your wife at first may become the things you loathe later on. My wife keeps the house. I loved this and said she was wife material. She enjoys doing it. She has a tiny bit of OCD. She cleans and cooks. But there are Friday evenings when she says she has so much to do tomorrow. That is not the mentality I want. Let's skip deep cleaning this weekend and start with brunch in town. She cannot do it. Before everyone criticizes me for not helping, I have helped. It just frees her up to do more minuscule and unimportant tasks. I stick to the big ones. Dishes, vacuuming, and taking out the trash. If she wants the bed made with extra pillows, that is on her. I watch. If she wants to deep clean the fridge, I opt out. On the other hand, I have talked with younger coworkers who met their spouses in clubs and now complain that all they want to do is have fun. Story 54. The mundane part of being married is circling each other around the house, doing daily tasks, and realizing you're stuck with this person during the boring, everyday moments. What's for dinner, what to get from the grocery store, what's wrong with the car. You have to truly like the person. You need to be deeply committed and consider them your best friend. Story 55. Losing physical attraction to people as they age and pay less attention to their appearance, and feeling tempted by younger, more attractive colleagues or acquaintances. Story 56. If you are a man, understand that if you pay the mortgage, the house is hers. You cannot put anything away without her moving it. You never know what is best for the children. She always does. You cannot cook on your own, even if you are quite good at it, without her making suggestions to improve what you cook. Finally, when making decisions around the house, even if you are a polished professional in your field, you are usually wrong and she is always right. Bottom line, for a lasting marriage, men keep quiet. Being an alpha male carries no weight except increasing the risk of divorce. Establishing peace at home is your daily objective. Feel free to boast to your friends about how you run the house, but stay out of range of her hearing your bluster. I should also mention that she is a much better driver than you, even while sitting comfortably in the passenger seat. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.